And what's up, everybody? I could add myself to the stream. That would be really nice. That'd be really productive. I hope you guys are doing well out there. I hope everyone is having a great evening, morning, or night, wherever you are. Of course, it is lunchtime here in Asia, which means it's late for you peasants over there in the North American continent. But good to see everybody here, no matter whether you are staying up late with Legal Mindset or whether you're just starting your day. Whichever way it is, it's completely okay by me. I support you. I support your choice to make bad decisions along with me here on Legal Mindset. But it's good to see everybody here in the chat today. Let me give a shout out to the number one person in the chat today. The first person was Wingnut21. So shout out. Once again, I'm giving a shout out to the first person who makes every live. And of course, this is a live episode, not a premiere. So you got all the emojis here. We're doing it live. And yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it 5 minutes after midnight Eastern Standard Time. So yeah, you guys can get in here and enjoy it and jump on in. The notice has been out on locals. We're also up on Rumble. So shout out to the Rumble Ghetto and those over there in Rumble and also on YouTube. So good to see everybody here today. So today we're going to have a more of a semi-structured, semi-casual stream. We'll talk a little bit about Trump, a little bit about Aquaman. And then if you guys have anything you want me to bring up in super chats or any other topics, we can talk about that as well. This will be my last live stream before I go to Japan. I will be in Japan over Christmas time. My brother is visiting, so he has never been to Japan. So I'm going to show him around. That's going to be a fun time. So I will be there all this weekend. I'll be back Christmas Eve, on Christmas Bangkok time, which will be, I think, Christmas Eve for you guys in the US. And so I may do a stream on my night, Christmas night, maybe. If not, then it would be doing one the next day. So it'll be the 26th in the morning. So there may be, if at latest, there will be a stream the 26th in the morning, which might be your Christmas evening as well. So we'll see about that. We'll see what we do. Or if it really is really late, then it'll be the 26th morning for you guys, 26th evening for me. That'd be the latest I would do a stream. But I will definitely be back streaming for you guys because this is what I love to do. And I love to be hanging out with all of y'all. But it's good to see all you in the chat, especially all of the members. I want to give a huge shout out, particularly to Is This Live, who donated so many memberships. Just in the last stream, we had 80 memberships, I think 50 of which came from Is This Live. So shout out to Is This Live, but also all the new members. And I see all the members in the chat today. Let me give a quick shout out. J Double B, Mr. Cage 242, Ann Ivy, Smopo Vienna, Sheridan S, Ron A, David Nelson, Corey Cast, Mike So, Lance Uppercut, Lauren S, Just John, JD, Industrious Bear, Christopher Brown, good to see you, the Tiki Man, good to see you, Sprout 23, Gray Lensman, Cadence, and who else we got here? Kasperius Hubbleson, good to see you guys up in the chat, as well as everybody else who pops through. If I didn't get you, like Rod Breton here, good to see all you guys. Legendary Racing, all you members in the chat saying what's up over there. So good to see all you. Felzu, Deha, what's up? My Kyopo brother. And Mario Trujillo, what's up? Good to see you. And thanks for supporting the channel, Mario. I appreciate you. Senpai notices you. So yeah, we're just going to start this one out talking about kind of continuing our conversation from last time on Big Daddy T, getting some more thoughts in here, correcting maybe one of my misstatements. I think I made a misstatement, so I want to correct that. I always will come back if I know I'm wrong or I know I said something incorrect. I'll correct my statements, so I'll correct myself on one or two things. But other than that, just going to be hanging out here with you guys. And shout out to the people over there on Rumble. I see Retro Gamer, Uppercut, Darth Hideous, obviously Danielle, Extreme 39 Buddha, Mr. Cage 242, Folsom Lockdown, and Shade Chaser. So good to see all of y'all. So shout out to the Rumble Ghetto. Always love the Rumble Ghetto. And make sure you are smashing the like button and or the pussy on the way in, whichever platform you are on. All right, so let's start out with some memes because, I'm a man of the people and I am a man of the memes. And of course, there's some good memes in on this one. I absolutely love this one. Democracy, vote, guy checks Donald Trump. Next, Democrats scratch out Donald Trump with the red pen in Colorado. Very, very accurate. I think this is a very good one. This is a good meme. It's a solid meme, actually. Hold on. I want to do it the other way. There you go. Solid meme. Man of the memes. Man of the memes. Because the memes are for the people. Memes are for the people. Master Lions, welcome as a new member of the Replay Gang, the RPG. Welcome so much. Appreciate you guys. We are at a record month for members, and I just want to keep on seeing it rolling throughout the next couple days as we go further. Also, at the end of this stream, all 269 of you, I have an announcement to make. At the end of this stream. So yeah, we'll talk about that at the very end. Special announcement. So thank you very much, Master Lions, and appreciate you and all the other members who are supporting this channel. All right, there's no lie here. This is 100%. I think Sheridan asks, "Where's the lie?" No, this is accurate. This is very much accurate. Very much accurate. So that's the memes of the day. And so the next thing I want to do is correct my misstatement. Okay, so I made an accidental misstatement when I was quoting certain language. I said it came from the Insurrection Act. That was wrong. I meant to say Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, right, which is the disqualification clause. And I pulled up that clause here, and I'm going to read that clause to you guys so I can go over it and talk to you guys about exactly what language here is at stake or was at stake in the decision. So let's just read. This is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. This is what is at issue in the Colorado lawsuit. So this is Section 3, disqualification from holding office. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector. Mind you, elector. Elector means person who is in the electoral college, right? The elector, right? Of president or vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who has previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer, underline that word, officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid and comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. So that's what happened with the former Confederates. The former Confederates were allowed to come back in because they were permitted under this to come back into office because they had a 2/3 vote to let them back in. Now, with this, the question was, for the legal analysis, was Trump an officer of the United States? And the pretty clear precedent in the Constitution was, no, he's not. A president is not an officer of the United States. A president appoints officers. A president is above the officers of the United States. Officers are inferior to the president. The president is a superior position. The president commands officers. The president directs officers, but he is not an officer of the United States of America under the constitutional interpretation. Now, the problem is the woke leftists and their 4 soy judges, including 2 Karens, those judges didn't care about the Constitution. They didn't care about the constitutional interpretation. All they cared about was a professor. They used a woke leftist professor and the opinion of a woke leftist professor to include Trump within the definition of officers. Absolutely novel, out of nowhere, unprecedented, which is why most people think that when this is reviewed by the Supreme Court, they will ultimately overturn it, because this language here in the 14th Amendment does not apply to Big Donnie T. So just wanted to get out there and throw that out there in terms of the correct interpretation. And Master Lions, thank you so much for the 10 legal mindset memberships. Let me give a shout out here to all those people that got memberships from Master Lions, and all of you guys, please say thank you. I see Jay's already done it. Some other people have already done it, but let me answer this. Ona Wall, you got a membership from Master Lions. Ramo Grey Wolf, you got a membership from Master Lions. Jackal Smith, Havago Dunn, Curtis, DS4, J Rock, the lovely Sherry, Dina Schloller, and Rotten Tanuki. All of you guys got memberships from that. So please say thank you to Master Lions. Appreciate that we are turning these streams into green before St. Patrick's Day. On St. Patrick's Day, I want us to be cheersing to an entirely green stream, or almost entirely green stream. That will be absolutely epic. Let's do it. I think we can do it. Oh, and what's up, Sean? Good to see you, brother. The Insurrection Scholar Community, founded 2021. Wait, what is he quoting here? What are you quoting, Sean? I don't know what you're quoting, but if you want to actually, Sean, you know what? I will send you an invite on Discord. So, Sean, if you want to come on for a second, if you want to talk about, any of this insurrection-y stuff, you are more than welcome to do so. I think I've got you on here, you degenerate. I mean, I actually read a poll that the most despicable people are on Discord. So, of course, that's where potentially criminals at. So yeah, check your Discord if you want to come on, Sean. That's feel free. You'll be struggle session free. Don't worry, I got you, bro. Squid for $10 says, even if the 14th Amendment applied to the office of the president and vice president, the state of Colorado doesn't have the authority to determine if someone is not qualified. I agree. That's the analysis that the dissent gave. The dissent gave the fact that, look, this is not something that the state can do. Congress alone has the power to determine who is qualified and disqualified. Only Congress. So therefore, the state government has no ability to determine this, to make this determination. This is something that solely rests with Congress. And I think that could be a decision of the Supreme Court that can make that could fix this right away and do it in an apolitical manner, right? Do it in a quick and apolitical manner. So let me drop this out. All right. Let me let the one, the only. It's been a while, Sean. It's been a minute. How's it going, brother?
I'm going pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm keeping it to my solo streams and my like one-on-ones or four my maximum four panel. I feel like that generally does very well.
Well, it's hard not to agree with that at times.
Yeah.
But I was making the joke about the insurrection scholarship. Like,
what the fuck is that? What is that?
I specialize in the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Said nobody ever prior to January 6th. So
yeah. No, all these people that popped up out of nowhere, like saying they're historians and they've looked at the deep history of this. I'm like, bullshit. Literally what that professor used in the decision, he's like, well, because Andrew Johnson called himself an officer.
Yeah.
That's enough proof that Trump is actually an officer and the president actually qualifies as an officer.
Are
you fucking kidding me right now?
That actually, I don't even think that's the biggest. And I know when I read it yesterday, I was really doom-pilled about it. I'm like, I'm not trusted in the swamp. They literally live in a swamp. The nine special people that live in a swamp that wear robes. Sure. I was like, they're not gonna. I've had time to think about it. Even last night when I was reading it, the biggest problem is the idea of what is an insurrection, because they go through all of that, and I don't know how far you got through it.
I pretty much read the whole thing. So
I can't stand the part where they're like, had this been any other person, all these words wouldn't matter, but because it's Trump, everything he says, he's either not sincere or he really does want to kill everybody. And that they kind of already tipped their hand.
They know what that is, because they know, Sean, they know that the same rationale could be applied to every single Democratic candidate for their support of the Summer of Love, the George Floyd riots, BLM, all of that.
And that was actually an example of that, where they point out, like, Trump was, he was so violent. He wanted to send out people to put down the riots, wondering, can he send the military and the National Guard in? Yet in the next breath, they point out, well, Trump never said bring out the National Guard into this insurrection going down, which it's funny the way they define insurrection is basically conducting governmental change through extrajudicial means. And I'm like, defunding the police, disbanding the police. We want to change. We want a decarceral system. Like, I guess that counts as an insurrection. And
so, every protest, single protest is now an insurrection.
Yeah. And the idea that, like, every mob, but not all mobs, just this mob. It's like, okay,
just
fine.
This specific mob, because he associates with particularly violent people. Oh, really? So the violent people that were killing people. And by the way, Chaz and Chop, which were actual autonomous zones where they declared that the laws of the local government, state government, and federal government did not apply in Chaz and Chop. That's an insurrection. That's an actual insurrection where they were declaring themselves separate and apart. So any senators that back that were aiding and abetting insurrection. I mean, that's more clear to me, because they actually took territory of the United States and declared themselves as independent.
but under their logic, Trump wanting to do something about it shows he was prone to violence, and that and I love how and this is the problem though when courts make definitions, you never see a court saying an opinion. We're not going to set the parameters for our definition.
Right.
They would never say that because then you don't have a definition. They say going all the way back to 2016. You're like, wait, what? Like, hold on here, and yeah, there was
and just all the language they use, like some of the language they use in the decision to say he's violent, like him threatening to beat up like a activist that showed up to one rally.
Yeah.
Okay, that's literally like you're redefining Brandenburg. This is huge. I mean, the Brandenburg test goes in the garbage after this if this stands. Right, Brandenburg is done. I mean, essentially, if you say anything that even implies you would be violent towards anybody under any circumstance, I would beat that guy up, or I would, if some Greenpeace guy came over to me, I would spit in their face, something like that. You're violent. You're an extremist.
Well, it's not only that, but it's also funny because Colorado just had their case Counterman v. Colorado, where that changed how threats are to be interpreted. Yet they're like, oh yeah, screw all that too. But the other part though, they have to go back to Schenck, and Schenck v. United States is that's the clear and present danger. That's shouting fire in a crowded theater, all that nonsense. And they use as an example, and Schenck was a guy protesting World War I. And all he did was go up to guys standing in line, hand out leaflets saying, "Are you really going to go fight? Like no more brother wars."
Right. Yeah, here it is. Facts the case during World War I. Socialists, right? Charles Schenck and Elizabeth Bauer distributed leaflets during the draft that violated the 13th Amendment prohibition against involuntary servitude. The leaflets urged the public to disobey the draft, but advised only peaceful action. Schenck was charged with conspiracy to violate the Espionage Act by attempting to cause insubordination of the military and obstruct recruitment. Schenck and Barr were convicted of violating this law and appealed on the grounds the statute violated the First Amendment. The conclusion was that the free speech clause of the First Amendment does not shield advocacy, urging conduct deemed unlawful under the Espionage Act.
Yeah. And generally speaking, at least from I'm not the biggest constitutional historian, so I'm sure there might be some actionables out there on law Twitter, but generally the courts don't go dwelling on stuff that's already been injected, and literally that holding was yeeted into the sun. You generally don't get to go back to the well. You generally have to stick with the current holdings,
right.
And that's the whole thing is.
I will say, Sean, the but actuallys, like anytime it's constitutional law, the amount of people that come out with the but actuallys is really, really, really annoying. It's to a level that's kind of ridiculous.
But that's how courts work. Everything is distinguished. Well, that's different.
Right.
It's exactly the same pattern. Yeah, but we don't think so. Why? Because we said so.
Right. But because reasons, right? Because reasons. And that's the reason why, look, there's an unpredictability to it, right? You can have precedent that's very clear and the court can be like, yeah, we see that, but we just don't like it here, right? We see that precedent, but here we're going to make a distinction for some reason or whatever reason, or even no reason.
Or we don't like this client. We don't like this person who's going to benefit from it. So
I'll do a black pill, white pill thing here with you for a second, because I feel like you were in a black pill place. So let's get a little bit of hopium. I mean, I think you were pretty convinced at first read that the SCOTUS would not take this up.
Oh no, I think they'll take it up. I'm just not.
I think they have to.
Yeah, no, they have to. They have to take this.
They cannot not take this.
No, I don't think so. They can't not take this, because here's the deal. Even if they say, well, it's only for primaries, which the Colorado Republicans are going to do a caucus if this doesn't work out, which I think is hilarious. People are going to immediately start challenging the general election because that will be available. And this opinion's going to get adopted. What do you think is going to happen in California? They're going to, good enough. We adopt they're basically going to say we adopt their rationale in its entirety. That's
and they can literally just remove. I mean, it's not just Trump. They can remove every Republican from the ballot that's made any comment that tangentially relates to this, right? So obviously Vivek would be out, right? You could get DeSantis, you could get all those guys out on the same grounds.
And that's where I would like to think they're going to do something about it, but I just you can't run around screaming the Supreme Court's going to save the day, because
Well,
you're
I
generally
hate that it always has to come to that. That's
Yeah.
my biggest problem, is that it always has to come to the Supreme Court save us again, because we're one. I mean, I don't want to put it this way. We're a couple justices, one or two justices that have, an unfortunate smelting accident, or something like that,
Yes.
Thomas is driving his RV and it's a slippery road, and we end up with America's completely screwed. I mean, the
Yes.
fact that we're on this line right now where we have 9 people in robes that are holding us together, and really of that, it's only 5 or 6 of the 9. That is frightening. That is actually terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Because this is, I mean, the if this went down that road, and I don't know if have you seen the DeSantis clip where he talks about
No.
the retributive? Okay, I'm gonna play it real
There's
quick.
going to be a lot of Minecrafting going on if this actually ends up staying in place.
Oh, this is gonna be crazy. So I'm gonna play this. It's a 4-minute clip, real quick from DeSantis. I don't know why. So the questioner's mic sucks.
For others, that I think the president said, I think it's best that we take the guns first and then due process. Well, yesterday the Colorado Supreme Court took him off the ballot, the primary ballot, without due process, without showing that he participated in insurrection. I think that's quite ironic. Maybe you have a comment on that, one of you. I'm really concerned that going forward with all these 91 indictments and the federal government having a 91% conviction rate, that the battle for the next year is going to be very distracting and not on the issues that you talk about if we don't go with somebody with the energy that you have. Thank you.
Well, great. Well, first, I mean, I think, yes. I mean, I think Donald Trump, when he said that his policy on firearms was to take the guns first and that he wanted to do due process later, that is unconstitutional. That's unacceptable. And honestly, it doesn't even reach the Second Amendment issue. They can't take any of your property without due process. They can't come in and take a TV without due process. That's the whole purpose of those amendments, is to be able to ensure that your life, liberty, and property are secured from government intrusion. And yes, if you violate a law, they go through process. There can be penalties. But saying that he would take guns first and due process later, that is not something that makes sense. And look, he has not been somebody that has typically believed in Second Amendment rights. I mean, he took positions, but he flirted.
Yeah, look, that's not the point. Ron's position. He's eventually gets to the Biden part. So just hang in there, guys.
Which was unconstitutional. And
not trying to put out the Ron 2024 campaign here.
If that's something that you care about, if he could even get elected, I think that I do not think that he would be somebody that would be dependable on defending your rights.
All in for DeSantis, huh?
Something that
we know
he believes in. But look, on all these things,
he's going to let you go after Disney.
We
know already.
Power of the state to advance their agenda.
So here we go. Here we go.
With the Colorado Supreme Court.
Here we go.
Look, if somebody's convicted or something of some of these things, there was no trial on any of this. They basically said, what, you can't be on the ballot? I mean, how does that work? What's the limiting principle for that? Why could we just say that Biden can't be on the ballot because he let in 8 million illegals into the country and violated the Constitution, which he has? Could we just say, oh, well, they have money coming to Hunter, whatever? So I think the U.S. Supreme Court is going to reverse that. But here's the larger thing of what the left and the media and the Democrats are doing. They're doing all this stuff to basically solidify support in the primary for him, get him into the general, and the whole general election is going to be all this legal stuff. And look, it's unfair. They're abusing power 100%. But the question is that going to work? And I think they have a playbook that unfortunately will work, and it'll give the Democrat or whoever the ability to skate through this thing. That's their plan. That's what they want. What they don't want is to have somebody like me who will make the election not about all those other issues, but will make the election about the failures of Biden, the failures of the left, and how we're going to be able to turn the country around. If that's how the election's framed, we will win. But they are setting this stuff up. I mean, how do you have the timing the way they've done it with all these things? They're doing this for a reason. They have a plan in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. And do we want to have 2024 to be about this trial, that case, this case, having to put hundreds of millions of dollars into legal stuff? Or do we want 2024 to be about your issues, about the country's future, with a nominee that's going to be able to prosecute that case against the left, just like I've been able to do in Florida. That is a path to winning. And I think they're putting us, that what the media and the left are doing with all these stunts, whether it's the Colorado Supreme Court, whether it's others. And there's going to be other Supreme Courts that are going to probably try to do this too. Maybe they'll wait for the end of these trials if there's conviction, but the liberal courts are going to try to do this. So that's what we'd be walking into. And it's not fair, but that doesn't give us our best chance to be able to win and to be able to do this in a way. It's a hard enough job as it is to have all the distractions.
Okay, so that aside, just wanted to show okay, so obviously Ron's pushing his point there, and I try to put that aside, but the analysis regarding what's going to happen in the courts, I mean, that part is pretty spot on. Obviously, we see them accelerating all of the cases against Trump, right? So they're trying to accelerate was the appellate case, the appellate indictment case in New York, right?
Yeah. They're trying to do that, but I mean, everything's, Trump appealing this stuff up to the Supreme Court has really kind of derailed everything. Because, Judge Chutkan had to pause the January 6th case because that's all going up to the Supreme Court now and deciding what's going to happen there, which then is going to end up delaying what's going on down in Florida. Yeah, and I mean, everything is kind of falling apart. So, yeah, they're trying to figure out that stopped them from getting their goal there. And sure, they're trying to figure out the next step of getting him. Trump keeps on figuring he just keeps on bumbling his way out of their traps, and it's making them go crazy because they can't figure out what to do. And that's the beauty of it.
And the thing is, he hasn't been convicted of anything. That's the real thing is Trump has been convicted of nothing. Yes. This is the same thing as people that were comparing Jonathan Majors the other day. I was covering Jonathan Majors, the Marvel actor Kang, who got convicted of abuse and harassment. They're comparing him to Johnny Depp. And I'm like,
a little different. Yeah.
Yeah, one of them has a criminal conviction. One of them, I can call an abuser or whatever, a harasser, like a beater of women, right? I can call him that, and he can't sue me because there's a criminal conviction, right? It's not defamation because it is now true under facts, right? Under the factual basis of the jury finding, right? You can disagree with the jury. You can say, "Oh, the jury's full of shit," but it's a thing, right? There's a ruling. It's out there. Johnny Depp had nothing. And here, Trump has absolutely nothing against him. There's no proof in any trial. And the other thing, Sean, is that really got me. I don't know if you read the dissents for this decision, but there was no procedural due process. Trump never got a full trial in this in Colorado. This was through the kind of administrative procedure for the election code. It wasn't through a full trial where he's allowed to depose people, have subpoenas, request certain types of evidence. So this is definitely taking away his procedural due process.
Well, I think there is there, but I think this goes to the idea of, and I forget where I saw it, but I think it does make a lot of sense that, yes, when they talk about Section 5 of the 14th Amendment, as far as due process is concerned, well, they said, Congress, it's up to you to figure out what you want to do. Well, Congress passed something called the Enforcement Act, which gave the U.S. government the authority and the ability to go after people who were, from the Confederate government and trying to run. Okay, so they had that. And then after that law got repealed and replaced with the act of insurrection. So you have to, yes, and I would argue, yes, he has to be convicted of it before there's, because to argue, and this is kind of goes along with the case of Rahimi that's in front of the Supreme Court now, take away somebody's Second Amendment rights. It's merely just a preponderance of the evidence standard in a restraining order hearing.
Right, and like a red flag law hearing. Yeah,
well, just in general for protection orders, restraining orders as well. But to have for your ability to run for office, that's the idea is if I could be a senator, representative, or president, I have the right to run for that office, and for that right to be taken away, constitutionally, I would argue enumerated right to be taken away from me on clear and convincing evidence, even that standard, which is kind of you could say 60-some% close.
No, not an enumerated right. Sorry. And I would agree with you.
It should be beyond a reasonable doubt. Yeah, it should be beyond a reasonable doubt. Yeah. And I think I would like to think they'll get that far, but I think they're just going to focus on this doesn't meet the terms of insurrection. And if you're going to claim he engaged in it, then everybody's engaged in it.
And they could blow the Supreme Court could blow this out just on the state has no authority to rule on this, right? This is a congressional thing. This is was never intended for the states to be given to delegated the power to make that determination. I think they could blow it out on that and avoid.
Maybe, but I think I will say the part of it that I didn't have a quarrel with was some of their arguments about whether they had the right to even have the hearing, and I think they do have the right. And I do think, and I kind of glossed over the Colorado application of Colorado law because I'm not a Colorado attorney.
Neither am I. Neither am I.
Yeah, and besides, every state's going to say their application of law was done proper. None of them, because you do have the right to challenge people all the time. You could challenge ballots. You could say, hey, they didn't fill out their application right, or the signature forms weren't filled out right. I did that once, saying the judge was running for a case where the judge is running for the Western. This county had regional courts, and it was for the Western Regional Court. But on his form, he just wrote down, Hee Haw County Judge. Well, and the Board of Elections said, well, that's technically correct, and we had to go up to the courts, and the judge looked at it, it's like, well, yeah, it's kind of correct. I mean, it's not 100% clear, but it's good enough.
Close enough to determine. Yeah. Okay.
So I think a lot of that's going to go by the wayside. I think the Supreme Court's because I do think they do have. I think some of those argument is persuasive. Just every state does have the right to regulate that. But when it gets to the end, it's the insurrection part, the engaging in it, defining it. I think that's
and
really
expanding that definition so that pretty much any activity would be an insurrection, right? What could amount to an insurrection?
Yeah,
that's extremely problem. I mean, the thing about this decision, I say it over and over, is there's so many different parts of it that are just catastrophic for America that I think they have to. And the Dakotas, if they look at this, they have to overturn it. They cannot leave that with this. Well, and look, they can even adopt the district court's ruling, right? Like the district court, the lower district court, which ruled in November, right? Just a month before, they can just be like, okay, yeah, we concur with the district court, send it on back, and that would be sufficient.
The only other thing I thought was interesting was the whole self-executing argument, because they try to point out, like, well, the 13th Amendment is self-executing. Yes, but if I violate the 13th Amendment and enslave somebody, I can't get charged with that. Congress had to enact the law. Like if I go out and if I enslave you right now,
I'm enslaved across the Pacific. He's got me. Yeah, indentured servitude.
Yeah. Okay, great. Then what happens? The police come and say you can't do that anymore. Okay. Well, no, there's a law against that. You're not allowed to do that to people. We have in the federal code. There's state laws against it. So it's self-executing in a way, saying, well, you can't enslave people anymore, but it wasn't. The passage of the 13th Amendment didn't just end slavery. It was the Emancipation Proclamation. Didn't, like, the slaves weren't free. Like, okay, well, they're not allowed to be there anymore. That didn't mean anything to the slave owners. You had to use guns to force them to stop, the force of law. Right. So there's some parts of it where I'm like, it's not self-executing, though. And as I sat there and thought about it more, they don't end just because you say that it's over. You can't just say Trump is canceled or Putler is done.
And by the fact that you say that, it self-executes and it's done, right? It's like, no, that's not the procedure. It's not the right process, right?
You could say it's done, but how do you enact that? Because like I said, I could enslave somebody right now based on that logic, and you don't charge me with violating the 13th Amendment. You might sue me for that, but I don't go to prison for violating the 13th Amendment. I go to prison for violating, like, human trafficking or kidnapping,
force. All those other laws that are periphery to it, but ancillary to the action, right?
In Thailand, they give me the key to the city, though. I mean, I know it's different. So
same thing. Industrious Bear says, couldn't then Congress therefore reject Colorado's electors due to a tainted election? Well, if it was the general, right? I mean, obviously this is up to the RNC. And I don't know if you saw this, Sean, so let me show you this real quick. But the GOP has already said, the Colorado GOP has already said that they're going to switch to a caucus. If
Yeah,
Trump
I brought that
remains
up. I
off the
thought that was
primary ballot.
hilarious.
So I bet the thing is the problem with this is number one, they have to get approval from the Secretary of State of Colorado, as well as from the RNC, from the Republican National Committee, which is kind of run by like Mitt Romney's was it cousin daughter or whatever the fuck it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Brother,
Yes.
sister. I don't know. Whatever they do out there. Whatever them folks do out there. That may not be coming, or they might just say, oh, we have to think about it, right? Or some other bullshit and delay beyond a time which would disqualify Trump or not allow them to go through with that. So
yeah, it's all of that. And also just, it's the Secretary of State. Whose side do you think they're on at this point? Like,
right.
Oh yeah,
it's Colorado.
Sure. Go ahead. Defeat my plan.
Right. They're the ones who came up with the plan, right? Obviously, It's their plan. Obviously. Mario Trujillo says, so not on topic, but considering the last few years, the Ivy Leagues have been getting blacklisted from federal courts, private firms, hell, even Wall Street, for God's sakes. Do you have hope? The Ivy Leagues have been getting blacklisted.
Well, the Ivy Leagues have been getting blacklisted probably in normal society, but the Ivy League mafia still runs the judiciary.
And I'll tell you this, there's still, and as somebody who's abroad, there's still an undue deference to the Ivy Leagues here, where people don't know what type of education is coming out of those schools. So folks come with a degree that it appears on the global ranking list of 1 through 100, and oh my God, it's got a high global ranking, and people on and on, they end up saying, oh look, I went to Berkeley, and they realize they did gender studies and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's like, I think that's going to catch up in a while, even abroad. People are going to realize, wait, these American universities that are on paper at the top are now just complete trash, right? It's going to get there.
Maybe abroad, but like it's still going to come down to like the last time there was a Supreme, like there's, if you're not in the top 10 schools, you're not getting on the Supreme Court. That's just the way it's going to be forever.
Weren't there some that have slipped through, like that have been from lower tier schools? Am I wrong on that?
I think there may have been here and there, but
but in general, the rule is you got to be from a top tier school.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just it's all obnoxious, but
as you know, some of those top tier people, they end up, never actually, and I know this is ironic from a YouTube lawyer, but they never actually practice as real lawyers for a second. They just go the professor route or, clerk, and then they end up moving on up from there.
Well, they do practice, or you have somebody like Gorsuch who practiced like, hand blown glass baldo law or something like that. Like that's all he's done. And it's like some boutique esoteric thing. I mean, as far as they go, Sotomayor was a public defender at one point in her career.
Correct.
And Clarence Thomas was working in a DA's office. Like, those are the only two of them that have ever done like getting mud on your boots type of lawyering. And they didn't do it forever, but most of the people who do this, like Elena Kagan, the Kevin James impersonator, she basically clerked and then stayed in academia forever. I mean, she became the Solicitor General for a little while, so they had some street cred for her, but she's never really done like legal work before. So I don't think she's ever even attacked a parking ticket, much less anything. But that's just how that is how
that's how it works. That's how the 9 work. That's how the selection.
It's not somebody like me who, people like me and you are never getting there. So
no, hell no. There's no way. There's no way. And I might get political office. That's different, right? But not on the Supreme Court. I might get locally appointed. That might be fine, like a state judge or something like that. I could get that for sure, but not
maybe federal. Maybe district if somebody does you some favors.
I need to have some grease. Samuel Williams said, the founding father said, civil assets forfeiture, they can take all your stuff and laugh. Well, yeah, pretty much. And the burden is on you in many states to prove that you should get it back, right? Saying, okay, well, the burden is on you to prove this is not the product of a crime. So you have to have a trial to get back your shit before there's even been a trial against you. It's civil asset forfeiture. When I learned about this, Sean, because it's not something I deal with in my daily practice, and now doing like immigration stuff over here, and then doing property stuff in the U.S. in-house counsel. I never really dealt with that, but learning about it, I'm like, this stuff is nuts. This is absolutely fucking crazy.
Yeah, and imagine trying to go to court in a civil hearing on having a civil trial before your criminal trial. So everything that happens there is going to get used against you in that criminal trial that they're putting together. Because
on a completely different standard of a completely different standard, completely different rules. Yeah. I mean, because because in the civil case you're going to have to testify, and if I'm defending you in the criminal case, I tell you you're out of your mind. So you're nuts. But you got to testify. There's no way you can. You want to get your shit back? You got to testify. Got to testify. Dehako says Sarah Wallace, the Colorado judge who ruled Trump engaged in insurrection, donated money to the Colorado Turnout Group, an anti-Trump group. Are you surprised? I mean,
I remember when that happened, and she said she gave an awful. I think that it wouldn't have been automatically disqualifying, but I think her answer was just atrocious the way she gave it.
Lily Smith said, "Bad if SCOTUS does. Jack will change the charges." Oh, speaking of Trump's prosecutor,
Well, I mean, maybe, but he's, that's. I think if Jack Smith is smart, though, he's going to have to be careful, because if they're already signaling this ain't it, Chief, then he needs to understand they're probably going to thump him if he tries to charge him with it. So, and we're going to find out soon enough, based on some of these cases under 1512, like what works, what doesn't, who's immune, who's not, what applies. So, no, it's going to become clear to Jack Smith what he can do or not do going forward, I think.
Cool. And then last we got here, are there any legal or financial consequences for bringing people up on false charges?
You mean for the citizens who filed this complaint, or the crew?
Yeah, I don't. It's not like filing a false police report. I mean, there's not any defamation here really necessarily. I mean, I'm trying to think what there is. There really isn't.
They would have a good. I mean, they have a, I don't like Drumpf is actually a good enough argument.
That passes muster, I guess, for them.
Does that stop me from hoping all these things they are afraid Trump is going to do? He does seize power, and whoever signed those petitions, their houses got J-damned.
I mean, if stuff happens, stuff happens.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I mean, the Air Force flies around Colorado. Sometimes, things fall off airplanes.
Just this little NORAD accident there. But yeah, no, obviously, look, these folks, these judges out there feel pretty confident in their decision. I mean, they were out there, the judges that made the decision. I think they're dedicated to it ideologically. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to put it.
They're dedicated, and they're forever in history now.
Yes, no one will forget these 4 judges for this. And, it loses credibility. And the biggest thing that's damaged is the rule of law and the credibility for our legal system. Because, as we see the rule of law and due process dropping in our country, we end up a weaker country and a less great country. I mean, one of the things I talk to people about abroad is, they love America because of our due process and the rule of law. They always say, look, America has the rule of law. That's what makes America great. Well, this is a loss of that, right?
Oh, definitely it is.
Yeah. So that's what I got on this topic, guys. So, Sean, I thank you. You can stick around if you want. But now I'm going to transition hard over to talking entertainment and, and fun stuff. So if you want to sit around and talk about Aquaman, I'm going to bring on my good friend Tom Connors of Midnight's Edge.
Hi.
Hey,
Tom. Yeah, actually, I'm probably going to. It's almost 1 o'clock, so I gotta.
No, I know it's late for you, but hey, Sean, it's been cool hanging out, and thank you for coming on to talk about this with me, because it's always good to have good people that I know I'm going to have zero drama with on my stream. Appreciate it.
Thanks. My bad. I felt like I ate up all the time, but
no, you're good, bro. That's why I bring you on. That's why I bring you on, man. All right, hungry hippo of time.
Yeah,
it's good.
All right, I'll see you guys.
See you, brother. Peace.
Yep. Bye.
Cool. Hey, Tom. So how's it going, brother? Good. Sorry I couldn't make your stream last night. I was traveling between cities here, and sometimes those late night ones, if I'm not in a place, like right now I'm in my friend's studio, that's where I record sometimes, so I don't go over here at midnight, so
I understand, brother.
Yeah.
No worries, no worries.
That said, I wanted to bring this up because your good friend and your partner in crime over there on Midnight's Edge posted this lovely photo, which I thought was really great and amazing of the packed theater, the absolutely packed theater.
Yeah, he had to fight
see
his way
Aquaman.
in.
Yeah. Oh my God. See how many people were like sniping each other to get into this theater. So is it going to be as bad as they say it is? Because all I am seeing right now for this is literally all I see for this is just horror stories. I mean, you know, the title here I got, this one was probably the most clever one I saw, was Aquaman projected to drown at the box office.
Yeah.
Which, you know, they're projecting an opening of 35 to 40 million, which was probably like their hot dog budget for this film.
I mean, that's probably on the high end, to be honest with you, at this point, with the way things are looking. I mean, we'll find out a little bit more Friday morning after the previews drop. But yeah, Andre got lucky and saw it a little early.
But what do you think it is? Is it, I mean, I guess there's multiple factors, but is it superhero fatigue? Is it DC Universe just being absolute trash? Is Amber Turd, you know, and her involvement, is that the problem here? I mean, what are the factors that I think are contributing to this particular movie failing?
Yes, all of the above.
All of the above. Okay.
I mean, I guess to break it down a little bit more, like,
I brought you on for explanations, Tom.
You have a mix between the superhero fatigue kind of thing going on, and it's really more so like a bad superhero movie fatigue. Marvel has really damaged superhero films across the board. So part of it is because of that. Secondly, you have some confusion among the fans as to what's going on. They probably should have waited to announce James Gunn taking over the DCU, because it really has, I'm sure it's had an effect, but then again, you can go back before he announced it, and it's not like the DC movies were breaking the box office, right?
Sure.
So I think at this point, between that, the whole idea that people were just kind of done with these characters for a while now anyway, beyond just, because I mean, the general audience still sees this as the same thing as BVS and all that other kind of crap. So they've checked out. They really kind of checked out.
They're done with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe with a new Superman, things can get revived. I mean, the Batman got a little bit of attention, even though I didn't like it all that much. But I mean, that just showed them, yeah, people are interested in this stuff. They're just not interested in these versions of them, basically, is kind of the basic idea of it.
Right. So like this formulation isn't big. I mean, like, for example, like Joker. Now I don't know how big the Joker 2 will do, the sequel to the Joaquin Phoenix, Joaquin Phoenix version. But I think there is an interest for like alternative stories and other tellings and other versions. Even like Into the Spider-Verse doing well shows that like, okay, there's some interest in other stories, right? Just not necessarily the way they're selling them in Hollywood, right?
Yeah,
now.
I think the age of the alternative comic book movie has gone away. You know, the days where we could do a Guardians of the Galaxy are not so, you know.
But okay, I'll give you one. Maybe this is a white pill. Like, how about this one, which is coming up, right? This is the leak photo from Deadpool 3, right? That's next year. Like, do you think that can make some cash? I mean,
I think it's got a lot going for it. I think it's one of the only ones as far as the Disney roster coming up next year that they have any hope of making any money off of. But if opening weekend, the fans that do go out and see it give it a poor review, I think that's really going to hurt this film going forward. Because I think that the world's gotten really used to the idea that I can just kind of see how people react to it on Twitter or whatever, and then I can kind of gauge if I'm going to go see it or not. Because I mean, look at a movie like Barbie that didn't like open huge. It did really well, but it had legs because people kept talking about it and, taking their friends to it and stuff like that, as far as the women go.
And I'll say this, I was actually in the process of moving from Korea to Thailand, and I was actually in both places watching the theaters. And internationally, I think that did well just because so many people grew up with Barbie, so they just saw Barbie and they went to the movie, right? But I think with the films coming up, we kind of know what they are, and we're just not excited for them. We're just not there for them. One thing I haven't had a chance to talk to you about and this is something that was kind of huge, and I covered it the other day, was obviously we have the conviction now of Jonathan Majors, right? So what does Marvel do with their cinematic universe? Do they just completely recast it, or do they reboot the plot? Like, which direction? And you've talked to others, so you can say, based on what others have said, right? On Midnight's Edge, which direction do you think they go in?
Well, here's the thing. I remember when he first got in trouble back in March, it was in April I had reported they had decided to let him go. And that was right before, like a day or so after that is when his agency let him go and he got dropped from all those other movies. And Andre was the first to make the point that really kind of supported what I was reporting and had been backed up by WDW Pro, and that is that Disney had let Jonathan Majors go. And that was because Andre's like, look, you're not going to lose your agency over a couple of small films. What you will lose your agency over, though, whether you've been found guilty or not, is if you lose that big Marvel contract.
Yes.
Because he had at least 3 or 4 more appearances up, and one of them was his movie, The Kang Dynasty.
Right.
So,
that was the name of the Avengers movie, right? It was like Avengers the Kang Dynasty. Like that, and it's an Avengers movie. So it's not just something that's a platform for himself as the big bad, but like that new generation of the Avengers, right? So that's the platform in which they're making it happen for the next generation. And now that movie is looking like it's going to be a complete fail. Not that it already wasn't going to be, because nobody gives a fuck about the next generation of superheroes, but now the villain is just not available.
Well, and I wonder if they were kind of hedging things ahead of time, because the end of Loki season 2 really kind of leaves it in a place, I guess, from my understanding, where you could just kind of go forward, and they've dealt with him now, even though they have the Council of Kangs or whatever. But like,
but is this going to end up with the same issue, Tom, as the Marvels, where it felt like if you did not like watch all 9 other TV series, which most people don't, right? Most normies, right? Normies are watching the feature films. They are not watching Loki. They're not watching all the side films. They weren't watching like Vision and all that sort of stuff. WandaVision. They weren't doing all of that. They were not watching all that. Normies were like, oh, it's a Marvel movie. I want to go to the movies, and there's a Marvel movie. Let's go. And they go and they say, I didn't do the required reading to understand what the fuck is going on with this. And I think that's a flawed model
that's a big problem right now.
To make the TV shows, the crappy TV shows, required reading for Marvel films.
And you're preaching to the choir here, because I'm somebody who hates to have to do homework. Like, I don't care if you have a show that's attached to something, but like at least with S.H.I.E.L.D., they always had a rule. And that was the movies could affect S.H.I.E.L.D., but S.H.I.E.L.D. could not affect the movies. So whatever they did on S.H.I.E.L.D. was fine as long as it was within the confines of whatever they had set up in the films. And in that respect, that's probably what they should have done. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
Everybody's seen the movies, right? Everybody has seen the movies. Not everybody has seen the TV shows.
Yeah, so it makes absolutely, and that's where things, I mean, if you really kind of look at where this really went off the rails, I mean, people started showing less interest in things like the Eternals and Shang-Chi. And that's where I said, yeah, they're not going to trust these characters they've never, ever heard of before, right? I mean, most people have kind of heard of, Iron Man. Everybody knows who the Hulk is. Thor, meh. A few of the other ones, obviously Spider-Man, everybody knows. But between Captain Marvel and some of the other ones they've introduced, the only ones that I think the audience has really kind of gravitated towards that were complete nobodies was the Guardians of the Galaxy. And outside of that, the rest have kind of been not really. I mean, even Black Panther's maybe the only other exception, but I would even say he's more considered like a B or C level.
Well, Black Panther himself, but the supporting characters, right? Like
exactly,
most normies,
are a problem. Yeah.
If I asked most normies to name the Guardians of the Galaxy, they could probably name all of the members, right? Or at least like Groot, Rocket, like Star-Lord, like at least the main ones, like Gamora, they can name those, right? But I don't think if I said, hey, name all the supporting characters from Black Panther.
Sure, he'd be the only one I can think of, yeah.
And even that, I think most normies
Killmonger.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, they did.
Claw. But a lot of those are characters that were kind of bigger already in the comics, right? So like
maybe.
But again, but that being said, you go from No Way Home, right, which was a big, huge success. I mean, that played like an Avengers movie. And you go from that to Doctor Strange, which had a hell of an opening. But then as soon as people realized, wait a minute, this is not a sequel to that movie I just watched where Doctor Strange was hanging out with Spider-Man.
Right.
This is a sequel, like you were just saying, this is a sequel to that fucking TV show I didn't watch. And that's where I think we started losing the audience. And people, again, Thor Love and Thunder was a bit of a different problem. That had less of that issue other than it was just like Thor Love and Thunder is, God, it is just a bad movie all around. And it was a mistake from beginning to end. And I think that really also didn't help with the faith in the Marvel Universe, compounded with the Disney problem. All these things you get mixed in with a whirlwind of shit. You know, you've got no stars left that anybody cares about. Brie Larson is pretty much like, you know,
repellent,
or whatever you want to call her, to where the audience has just had enough of her. And if they made an Avengers movie right now, like you just said, who is in the Avengers that we give a shit about anymore? Thor and Spider-Man and
maybe
and Hulk, I guess. And even Hulk's kind of been cucked out by his cousin. So.
Right. So it's going to be She-Hulk, right? Because that's going to, it's going to be She-Hulk is going to be the prominent one.
Exactly.
You know, they're going to have Hulk off, like, you know, being a loser. Maybe Hulk's become Fat Hulk or something, and he's out there on Fat Hulk Island or something, you know, or emo crying in a corner, something like that. And, you know, She-Hulk's got to do all the heavy lifting.
But as far as like Kang goes,
hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Aquaman says slamming tequila shots and riding seahorses. Badass.
Yeah.
Wait, does he actually slam a tequila shot in the
He's
movie?
always drinking.
Okay. I guess it's just
he was even drunk at the end of Flash with Ezra Miller.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
He's always drinking. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, look, Thor Love and Thunder, you're absolutely right. That set the precedent for what the movies were going to be like going forward. And even the Ant-Man movies, like the Quantumania was like just not that engaging, right? It lost you. And the King as a villain, right? When King is defeated by a bunch of ants, I'm sorry, he doesn't stay as the same big bad as Thanos, right? There's a reason why Thanos sent out his minions, because it wasn't Thanos.
Right. And that's the problem you have here, is they're trying to make him their next Thanos. And they hadn't really built this character up in any way that anybody gave a shit about. They hadn't put him in any of the movies. He'd only been in Loki season 2, and Ant-Man up to that point was the first time he was in a movie. You know, so like, and even then, he, like you said, he just got his ass kicked. Now in the original cut, from what we've heard, Kang won. But Bob Iger came in and made him reshoot it with a bunch of jokes, because I guess this was much more darker sequel to the other two. And, you know, Ant-Man, I wasn't surprised when it didn't do as well, because the second one kind of fell off a bit too. And I think the reason the second one suffered is because people watched Captain Marvel and realized it was crap and all that kind of business. So why should I bother? And it didn't have nothing to do with Infinity Stones or anything to do with Thanos or anything to connect to Avengers. So I'm pretty sure people are like, you know what? I think I'm going to take my chances on this one.
Yeah, that would actually make more sense if Kang had won in Quantumania, or like gotten at least a partial victory there. So like that would have made more sense to set him up as a big bad, not like a failure. Right?
Exactly.
That doesn't make sense to me.
And then even before this conviction came down, we already heard, you know, the Avenger movies were getting new directors, new writers. So they're already kind of shifting gears before this. And this is another thing that came out, and this kind of helps solidify what I was saying about back in April. They were already letting him go. Oh God, I'm trying to remember the guys. Jeff Snyder and this other guy were talking about this too. And they had said pretty much the same thing. They were planning a while ago to either recast him or move forward in a different direction already, regardless of whether or not he had won or not his case, as far as that goes. So that just tells me that that's kind of when the like I said, there's been more than enough evidence now that I believe that they were just waiting for that. If he had not been guilty, they just wouldn't have announced he was gone.
I just hate.
That's the only difference, I think.
To me, Tom, with this Jonathan Majors, it really boils my blood to see, you know, people fired, like, for example, what happened to Depp and Justin Roiland, right? For example, who was cleared of all charges, but already removed from everything, right? Like, so to me, it just bothers me to see, look, there's folks that are given due process by the companies, right? That are said, hey, look, we're going to maybe
anyway. Yeah.
Right. And Tom, look, they can, and I support, look, a company should hedge their bets. Company should say, hey, look, we need to be prepared if he's found guilty or not guilty, right? I'm okay with that, right? That makes sense from a practical standpoint. But at the same time, they let the case go through. I have no doubt, Tom, that if he was found not guilty, they would have left him.
I think he still wouldn't have been there, but I think they just wouldn't have announced it like this. That's what I was saying is they wanted to avoid the Johnny Depp situation. So that's why they hadn't said shit for months. Sure. Right. That's the last thing, especially considering he's black. That's the last thing they need to do.
That was why they did that. They did that specifically for
and I think
reason.
You're right. I think there is a bit of a point to be made as to how they treated Johnny Depp and compared to this. But I think also they learned their lesson a little bit from Johnny Depp.
Sure.
In that they weren't, and if he'd have won, I don't think they would have kept him on, but I just think they wouldn't have announced he's fired. They would have just moved on and said, oh no, we were done with Kang anyway.
Well, I would love to see.
I think that's what they would have done.
Look, if the yardstick has moved since Depp, if the yardstick has really moved, I would love to see that apply across the board to everybody, right? That's all I'm going to say. Like the next.
I agree. Like what about Ezra Miller and shit? That motherfucker get away with murder, man. I mean,
did you see the Homelander meme where it's like, Ezra Miller after seeing Jonathan Majors conviction? It's like so good.
Like, I mean, he can get away with murder. Like, I agree. Like, what the hell, I mean. But I mean, as far as the case goes itself, I wasn't surprised when I heard there was a guilty verdict. I was actually surprised how light he got it. Because to be honest, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, this is an injustice. This is an injustice." Like, yeah, to a point, you could be right, but he had no evidence to really support his case. He had zero people coming out to help him at all.
The only thing, Tom, did you watch the video of him running away from the car?
Yes. And the problem with that.
Only exculpatory evidence he had.
Exactly. But the problem with that is he went back the next day / morning or whatever it was a few hours later. And then that didn't help that when he discovered her on the floor, he went and waited in the lobby instead of trying to revive her. And then the things that to me that were the damning part of the whole thing was that audio clip and the text messages when he was trying to tell her not to go to the hospital because it was all about him, even though the symptoms she was talking about were clearly a concussion. And he's like, not even denying that he clocked her in the head. He's just like, I don't need to get in trouble, kind of shit.
Well, and the hubris to call himself like Barack Obama and Martin Luther King by saying that she should be Coretta
He thinks
Scott
he's Martin
King
Luther fucking Kang. It's like, what the hell, dude?
I didn't even get the that's
like, motherfucker, you ain't even what do you think you are? Curing cancer or some shit? You're making a movie for fucking 12-year-olds, dude.
Guys,
like,
Martin
give me
Luther
a break.
Please, memers out there, give me a Martin Luther King meme. I will post that everywhere. Please.
That's what he thinks he is. I heard that shit. I'm like, oh my God, listen to this fucking guy. Like, holy hell. Like, who does he think he really is? I'm changing the world. I'm doing good things for my people.
But Tom, I think he believes that about himself. I think he genuinely believes that. I believe that he believes that.
They're fed this shit on a daily basis from all these people. And that's the other thing that's weird is after his agency dropped him, I guess his actual agent himself left the agency with him. But I'm like, why isn't this guy up on the stand as a character witness? That's another thing. Did you notice he didn't have any character witnesses? Nobody has come out in support of this guy. In fact, the opposite. Everybody's come out and said, oh yeah, we're not surprised. We knew he was like this. He's been abusive before. He's a nightmare to work with. He's this, that, and the other. The absolute opposite of Johnny Depp, where people were stumbling over themselves to say, oh no, he's a perfect gentleman. He never treated me like this.
His
and shit like that.
We're saying, and the fact that can I put out there, like, you usually don't hear anything nice, like exes coming out and saying, no, he was nothing but a perfect gentleman. And in fact, this incident you're describing, in which it could be interpreted as him pushing me, no, that was actually him helping me. So like, F off, like from Kate Moss, right?
No, but he thinks he's Sean Penn or some shit, and Sean Penn thinks he's saving the fucking world. I see, but they brought up Sean Penn. Yeah, like who are these fuckers think they are? Like he does. Penn, Sean Penn's the same way. He comes out and he's like, "We're changing the fucking world" and all this shit. It's like, dude, what the fuck do you think you're really doing? Like,
nothing.
Seriously,
they're not really doing anything. That's the point. These people do absolutely nothing. Thank you, though. People who do something. Lele, thank you so much for the 20 Legal Mindset memberships. Base Legal Mindset over there, getting a lot bigger. Those that got those memberships, let me read them out real quick. Drew Lavers, Robert Donaldson, Jake CB, the fan with no name, Q, Valentine Doggo, Narsos, Dan Stifer, Kevin Vassar, Scarlett Court, Magician Sapphire, No Sad Onions, Arctic Wolf, James Bransky, Ron Crossman, Flash Gordon, Croated Cheese, Carl Anderson, Philip Coggins, Robin Parrish. All of you guys, please say thank you to Lele for those. The people that I just named, say thank you to Lele. And then drops on top of that a $5 super chat, €5, says, great stream yesterday. Long live the Constitution. Keep up the great work. Listen, if we got to fight for something in America, it's fighting for the Constitution, our freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom of association. These are things that are worth fighting for 100%. Let's see here. TB for $2 says, so the film with Amber Heard is shiring the bed.
Oh yeah, we should talk a little bit about that shitting the bed evens.
Wait, what is that? Is that a thing?
Aquaman. Well, she shit the bed.
Yeah, but is there a joke in there about that?
No, I doubt it.
Okay,
she's in the bed through most of the movie. That's kind of funny, I guess.
Oh, there we go. There's a joke. You can make the joke. You can create.
It's there
the
somewhere. There's something in there. Yeah.
Well, you can you can take the image and just drop it onto that file, and there's your meme, right? Like just drop it on the screen cap, and there's your meme.
She left a grumpy for the nurse.
Hold on, this one goes with it. Mario Trujillo says James gunned himself in the junk. DC is doomed. Do you concur? Is DC done? Is it a wrap for DC?
No, I think it's the chance. It's all up to Gunn. It's all up to Gunn. If Superman flies and it does very well, and he doesn't overdo it the way that they had been doing it with Marvel and DC so far, there's a way to do this that you can at least make something that most people will enjoy. But it all depends on how he gets started and goes from there. So we'll see. I got enough faith in him, but at this point, it's like, might as well give him a shot. I mean, he was one of the only things over at Marvel that was worth a shit. So I don't agree with all his politics. I don't agree with everything he says or does so far. In fact, I think some of the things he has done are dumb, but
look, this shows, I mean, they all call us partisans, this and that. I don't give a shit about people's politics if they can make good films. I really don't.
There has not been one James Gunn movie I have seen yet that I didn't like. And I've even seen all his older shit, like the specials and Super and stuff like that. So,
well, I've talked about this with the anime world with like Hayao Miyazaki. Some people bring up his environmentalism, and he is like very, very extreme with environmentalism. I'm like, yeah, that's very true. But all the Miyazaki films I like, even though I know that's his message and I know it's clear, like he puts it as a clear element in many of his films, it doesn't bother me because the film is still good. And I understand, look, this is something with an environmentalist slant, right? Like this is the message here, right, of his film. That's fine. He's entitled to make his message. If you really are offended by that, you can choose not to watch it. I can just say, okay, I see it. I see your point. You're making an argument in this case, and there's an argument for protecting the environment, but I disagree with certain elements of that, right? I would scale that back a little bit for, okay, humans have a right to our existence and comfort in this world as well. So anyways, point of the matter is you can disagree with someone politically and they can make something good.
Yeah, and I mean, at that point, it's all on to him. We'll have to wait and see how he does. But as far as Aquaman and that kind of crap goes, I don't know if you want to ask any questions. I know very little about what's in the movie, but I've asked a few questions of Andre. But
sure. Well, I'll get some of these you probably know. Last quality superhero flick was Sin City 2005.
Ooh, I don't know about that, but
I like Sin City though.
He is contrarian 420, so I mean, I guess
it's been a while. Christopher Brown said for 5, if I had to deal with Amber Turd, I would develop a drinking problem. Oh, very good. Very good. Weird for 5 says Games Workshop messed up the Amazon movie rights to 40K so badly they fired the lawyer immediately. Rings of Power 40K edition. Talk to Arch Warhammer.
I know Cavill's involved, isn't he?
Yeah, I thought Cavill's. To me, Tom, from this project, all I know is that Cavill's involved, and if Cavill's out, it's done. I think I'm pretty sure that like if Cavill doesn't run,
that'd be a big mistake on their part. Yeah.
So I'm optimistic about it. So because of Cavill and because I know he's actually committed to the source material and he knows
exactly.
So I'm going to be optimistic about it. I'm going to choose to be optimistic so far. We will see. Right? We will see. Take Rat gifted 50 legal mindset memberships. Holy smokes. 82 new members.
Wow.
Today. Wow.
That's insane. How much is your memberships?
Wow.
That's got to be a lot.
Yeah, that's a good amount. That's a healthy penny. And thank you so much, Tank Rat, for coming up big. Tank Rat, you've been a great supporter of this channel. And all those that have been donating today. Obviously, Lele donated today. Some other members, dropped on today as well. So appreciate everybody. Master Lions just became a member as well and dropped some free memberships. Appreciate you guys making it big with the memberships, not just on my channel, but also on Tom's channel, on Midnight's Edge, and all those other channels where you guys are becoming members and making it a sea of green. Because look at how many people are now here. I'll read some of these. I won't read all of these, but Anonymity T2, Glade Riven, Ben X, Mighty Raptor, Zero Smoke, JM, Tyler Kagato, Prometheus Ascends, Galandria, Terror World, Keith W., Archie Mitchell, Captain Zap Brannigan, Bear Doe, King Tiger 213, Poke Smasher, Quantum 83, KW10, Mediocre Gamer, Stephen Borquez, DZ3, and Dr. Scorpion, Jonathan Conklin, all you guys and more. There's much more there that became members. Any of you guys I mentioned, all of you guys, make sure you say thank you to Tank Rat in the chat for giving you those memberships and for staying such a based member. Chaucerian Fraud said for 5 months, remember for 5 months, says, I am tired of people trying to prove their morals. Well, I think the problem is, Tom, they're trying to prove it in media, right? I don't have a problem with somebody having a moral principle. I don't have a problem with them being a raging communist or feminist or whatever else. Just don't try to show it in media and convince me as part of entertainment. I mean, I think that's where we're at with modern day media.
Well, and I think it's even just more or less what kind of media it's being put in. Because I mean, look, I'm a film fan. I've watched all sorts of films for years. I've seen, and this is what bothers me about this whole thing, is they're acting like they're breaking some new friggin' ground or something like that. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Sure.
I mean, we've seen The Color Purple. We've seen tons of movies in the past. I've even seen some, lesser known films that would cover like gay and lesbian stuff and all kinds of other kind of topics. And it's like, look, when I'm getting into a movie like that, I understand what I'm getting into. Right. I know that it's going to cover this topic. I know it's going to be around this topic. I know it will have a social message in it. I have no problem with that. My problem is when you're shoving that social message into things that it has no reason being there, or you're really piss poor at hiding it. Right. Because even great sci-fi or even other kind of films in the past, as comic books actually are a good place to do it. You can do it with superheroes, but they just do it so poorly. And that is, you can take a lot of these social messages and mix them into the story. I mean, Star Trek has always been a great example of that, where the original series did a lot of stories about whether Vietnam or this, that, and the other. But what they would also do is they wouldn't sit there and try and preach to you and tell you what the answer is. They would present both sides of the argument, and they would let you decide through, basically like hiding behind, the fact that they weren't supposed to interfere with things in certain levels. So it'd be like, we'll have to come back here and see how this planet, is in a few years from now and see if they've survived and
see which way it's played out, because like
exactly
the key is that they're telling you, like it's with Star Trek, for example, like there's two sides to a conflict. There's actually good points on both sides. There's like good rationale, or like there's a reason behind both sides. The problem with modern day media is they're straw manning one side, right? So they're putting in the weak side and steel manning the other, and they're putting it ham-fistedly into these stories in a way that destroys the story itself, right?
Yes, so exactly.
For example, right, if we wanted to talk about a migration issue, there's a way to do that with a story like, a galactic migration. There's a way to deal with that and deal with both sides of that issue in a way that addresses real world issues and the problems with migration, right? Like integration, like political power, like economic influence, cultural change. There's a way to do that in a thoughtful manner. And there's a way to do that where you're just saying, well, anybody who doesn't like migration is a xenophobe, bigot, racist, Nazi. And they're choosing the latter, right? They're choosing to just call you names because you're not the way they are, right?
Yeah, another great example is like the original Planet of the Apes and how the film itself is more of a comment on the civil rights movement. Now, that kind of stuff at the time,
Correct.
There's ways you can do these things that don't necessarily make them not entertaining and remind. It can be done.
It can be done. It can be done. Weird said Kaval couldn't unwoke Witcher. This is Amazon.
Well,
I don't know if
I don't
he's
see him
given
sticking around if he can't have his way. Yeah.
if he's given creative control, which from what I've been told, he's in charge of the creative control part. So if he's got that, then he should be able to do that. I don't think he had that with The Witcher. He has a different level here, I think, of influence on the story than he did with The Witcher. In The Witcher, he was just the actor, right? I don't think he said he had as much say over the role. Just saying. Emo Warrior says, great to catch you live. Yes, we are indeed live, and we are rocking on new memberships here, guys, because Pranthra111 became a member of the RPG and then went on to drop 10 new Legal Mindset memberships. Thank you so much, Pranthra, for those memberships. So because of that, Ais, Yukia, Ben DeGoro, Scalia, Tony Walland, Shelly Scolari, Alec, AJ Harkness, Brom Bombadil, Adam Bruno, and the majestic American Woodcock are now members. And then beyond that, Drop Barracuda dropped 10 Legal Mindset memberships, which helped Sean Hughes, Barney Fife, David Macdoff, Coco Hull, VT Wayfaringen, Jimmy Feck, Davey G123, and Peter Kalo be members, and also One Fan's View be members. So say thank you to those guys who dropped those memberships, because it's really awesome. You guys have access to all the emojis, including the new Disney emojis that I've come out with, and also access to the members only chats. We will also, I will tell you this, 2 surprises for this channel. Number 1, I will definitely, as of January 1st, I'm going to have a Steamboat Willie emoji that will definitely be there. So you guys can look forward to that. Also, starting in the top of the year, I will be announcing a special project. I've already talked about it. My CD Creek picture book project, going over the magical adventures of CD Creek, which in no way bears any resemblance to Reedy Creek at all whatsoever, with Steamboat Willie as the main character now in the public domain as of January 1st, 2024. So we'll be on that project. I actually got an artist who's a fan of the channel on the project. So we're going to be launching that January 1st, 2024 as Disney's copyright expires. So stay tuned for CD Creek. It's going to be very fun. It's going to celebrate both the expiration of Disney's copyright, with this, which they unjustly extended for 40 extra years beyond what it should have been. It should have been long since expired to all those characters in Steamboat Willie, as well as celebrating certain shady acts of our favorite pixie dust theme park kingdom. So that is my special announcement there. Get ready. It's going to be really fun. But the crazy thing about the copyright thing is, Tom, is that Disney is actually, so they're asserting that only the copyright on the original versions of Mickey Mouse, like the one that's in Steamboat Willie, the Minnie Mouse there, the Bluto, the big jacked guy, the big dude, and the goat. Only those original versions are going to be public domain. They're making an assertion that later variations are still covered, which is a novel argument.
Well, it's technically true, and this is the thing.
Technically true. It's
well, here's the thing, and I mean, how much do you know of copyright law? Actually,
I know a good amount.
Okay,
not from study.
Because my understanding of this is that the derivative works of Mickey are not in the public domain, just Steamboat Willie at this time. And as we go through time, other ones will go into the public domain, just like with certain other characters. By, like, for instance, 2030, I believe the first Donald Duck cartoon. So not to be confused with the actual character so much as that version of that character, as you were saying. So there's certain things you can get away with to a point. You could always do parody already. See, that's the thing, is a lot of things I hear what people want to do is like, well, you could already do that legally anyway, because that's the same as parody.
So here's,
but now if you want to do your own version of Steamboat Willie, you can. If you want to take that original cartoon and sell it on a DVD or load it up on YouTube, Disney technically can't copyright claim you. There's nothing they can do against you because that cartoon is now in the public domain. And as of
January 1st, as of January
1st. And as we go along, like I said, more and more will come. So a lot of them, it'll start popping up on like those DVDs you see at the dollar store that have like, old Betty Boop and Bugs Bunny cartoons that have now gone into the public domain. They'll now have Steamboat Willie on them as well.
Yes. So the public, this is the really cool thing about public domain. So, and people really misunderstand this because they confuse it for fair use, right? So fair use is a defense. It's an affirmative defense. So when someone accuses you of stealing their copyright to something that they do have copyright to, so the key factor is someone has copyright, they point at you and saying, you stole my stuff. You as a defense say it's fair use. Then it goes to an analysis, which is case by case, situation by situation. However, the cool thing about public domain is there's none of that back and forth. There's no copyright to begin with. Anybody can use it any way they want for as much money as they want, for whatever profit they want. It's fully able to be used by anybody. There's no copyright whatsoever. That's a difference because Disney can't even sue you over it. Because what they did, Tom, was to silence parody, they would sue you and say, okay, we're going to force you to prove in court for hundreds of thousands of dollars that this is actually parody. And the people say it's not worth it. Right? It's not worth it to fight Disney in court over this. Now they can't even bring the claim. They can't even bring the case. That's the real key here. That's the big W.
Yeah, you just have to be careful. I mean, there's certain things you can get away with, certain things you will just avoid, anything post Steamboat Willie, avoid any other Disney characters. And again, a lot of times, like I said, what a lot of people want to do, like making a horror movie and all that stuff, it's like you technically already could. Right, because that just falls into parody.
You technically could, but they would sue you over it because
if they wanted to. Yeah,
it's also their trademark, and they would say
that's the other problem we have here, and this is where things get muddy because they still own the trademark on Mickey. That's the problem. So be careful with that.
so the thing with trademark is trademark keys off of you look at a brand and you associate it with something, right? Like the Nike swoosh, right? So if you see the swoosh, you think, oh, that's Nike, right? Because you see the swoosh. But with Disney, the way to beat the trademark and say, okay, this is not confusing people that this is Disney, is just put a disclaimer that this is not in relation to any corporation out there, or any other product other than this one. This is purely this particular property and making no representations for any other corporation whatsoever. You do that disclaimer, you're clear, right? Like you're going to be clear. Because you're making clear this is not a corporate logo. This is not of a corporation or anything else. I think you just put that up there and you're good to go.
And you're like I said, you got a lot of leeway to play in, right? There's a lot of things you can do with it. Other things is you can kind of make it transformative as long as it's still Steamboat Willie, right? Like it's, as long as you're not encroaching on any other Disney things, like you can't add Goofy to the mix. Right.
Sure.
That's not how this works,
Right. Because he's not there. I mean, but you have Mickey, you have Minnie, you have the goat and the big dude, right? You got all those people in there that you can bring in the original version of Minnie. I mean, people have been kind of sleeping on that Minnie's in this too. So, you've got other characters you can use that were in Steamboat Willie as long as you use that version of them, which is like the topless, single, like whole pupil, no clothing, no color, anything like that.
A good example of this is I think somebody made a video game out of Steamboat Willie and they got it ready to go for the copyright. Yeah, and I think that's so there's a good example of how you can use it. They're just using a lot of the stuff from that cartoon and making it transformative into another form. Right.
Yeah. Here's the I'll show you guys the thing. Now, this is not going to come out until 2025, but I believe they're like marketing it and selling it now. So that's what they're going for here with the mouse game. Here it is. You can see this is like the Steamboat Willie version, right? Clearly, if it was like it helps it that this game is in black and white, right? So it's closer to the Steamboat Willie version, but it's also a different version. They add a little bit to it, right? It's not pure Steamboat Willie. It's Steamboat Willie with a hat, a trench coat.
Yeah, and you can do all that. See, they probably could have done a lot of this before too.
They probably could have gotten away with that one. That one's on the line, right?
Yeah,
but
it's kind of like that whole 25% different thing we always talk about. Like there comes to a point where it even comes with like cartoon designs, because that's the thing is, even I think Disney got sued or by, wasn't it, who was it, the whole or no, he tried to sue, wasn't it, over the original character he designed, and then there was another, the Bosco character or whatever, over at Warner Brothers. He sued them over that because it looked like too much like Mickey, I think it was at the time. But I'm getting it scrambled around here in my head because it was so long ago, but that I've looked into this stuff. But yeah, that's the thing, is like when it comes to the copyright business, just be more careful with like trying to incorporate any other things that are about Disney. Like if you're adding new original things to it, go for it. You're fine. You're fine. You can do whatever you want there. It's no different than when somebody makes a version of Robin Hood nowadays or stuff like that. Just as long as you keep it basic and fine, you're not encroaching on anybody's copyright.
Exactly.
Just because of the trademark. That's the only problem.
Just keep it to the public domain version, right? Like, for example, Snow White, right? I mean, Snow White, technically the basic character of Snow White is public domain because it's from something that is hundreds of years old, right?
What
so,
isn't is their versions of the characters and the dwarves, for instance, they gave their own names and stuff.
There's specific names for the dwarves and their specific depiction of.
But aren't we like 20 some years? Not even 20 years away from that becoming public domain.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
yeah.
it be?
Well, that
37 is when that came out.
Don't have to wait too long for a lot of these things. You're not going to have to wait too long because they're never going to extend this again. We already had the Mickey Mouse Protection Act, in the 90s. That's not going to pass again. It's not going to fly. They've lost all their capital. And when people talk about, oh, Disney has such political capital, well, clearly they don't have the capital they had in the 90s or the 60s when they had these. Or was it the 60s? I think was the first one.
I'm sure they could have threw enough money around if they wanted to try and get it extended another 20 years, probably. But maybe not. But I think, like you said, the problem is they don't have the political influence anymore. But I don't think they bothered trying because they would have had to start the fight a few years ago. I think maybe even you brought this up once, and they just didn't. And I think this all kind of, because it all kind of would corresponded with the woke shit taking over. I think Disney's more than happy to let the legacy of Walt go. I don't think they really give a shit anymore.
Current year Disney doesn't give a damn about Walt Disney's legacy.
So I think that's part of the reason why they didn't ever think about even tried spending the money or their time or the effort at going after extending the copyright even more, because they probably could have argued for another 20 years and they may have gotten it. But I think that they knew that between the political situation and the fact that they wanted to bury Walt, that I would go
out of the way, Tom, to say they're actually actively seeking to undermine Walt because, for example, what they're going to do with Bambi, for example, Walt was very specific that the way he did Bambi was for a very specific point. And people say, "Oh, the scene with the mother is harsh." Yeah, it's harsh, but it's a serious point, right? It's meant to drive home a very serious point about man and nature and the relationship between mother and child, right? These are very, very important points in the movie. And to say, okay, we're going to take it out because modern audiences are too sensitive. They have menu anxiety. They cry when they're calling room service because they're scared, right? I mean, no, I'm sorry. This is not what Walt would have wanted. Walt would have said, man up and let's keep that in there, right? He fought to keep that in there. And that's perverting his legacy by changing these things.
Well, and that's another reason why they're remaking all these movies anyway. Exactly. They just want to re-envision their history.
Rewrite history. It's not because what they're going to do is they're going to say, Tom, oh, this is the way it was the entire time.
Or at least should have been. So, yeah.
Yeah. Drop Barracuda says, did Oswald the Lucky Rabbit release public in 2023?
I think so. I think, honestly, that might have been longer now because I'm not even sure where that one lied. Because that's the one I was talking about originally. Yeah, that Walt claimed he had stolen from him initially. Yeah.
Okay. And Drop Barracuda says, "Je n'ai pas un souris." Okay, so you're not a mouse? You're not a mouse? Okay. I think so. I think that's the French on that one. But yes, we are not down with the mouse here in any language, even if it's in Disney World Paris, which I think is honestly, I've been to Disney World Paris. I think it's one of the dirtier ones, but California is up there. Okay, Rants from Rumble. Shipwreck 13 says, how about Pro.x and Magneto? Race swapped King and X. Wait, what? There's a race swap with Magneto? I don't get that one, Shipwreck.
I'm not sure what he means. I know they were talking for a while that they might do Black Magneto and Black Professor X.
Yeah, I don't. That's what it is. Professor X and Magneto. They race swapped King and X. Okay, so they're gonna put a black person as Professor X. I mean, I don't like it, but I don't know. I don't like it, but just create a new character. I'm sorry, create a new character. Also, I am for re-releasing Song of the South in theaters. I'm all for that. I'm all for Song of the South remastered released. And I feel like, wasn't there a thing, Tom, where they were trying to like put something out again with Song of the South, so they would like renew some sort of rights to it, or am I messing up here? Because
I'm not sure, but
when that goes in the public domain and it gets out there and people love it, like
they keep using zippity doodah and shit though, so that I know is one of the things they're able to hang on to it with. But
I don't think that works that way for music though, right? Like, I mean, you still with copyright, right? The original version of zippity doodah, after the time period elapses, that's just out there now. Their remix of zippity doodah may not be. I think.
Yeah, that's true. As far as when did this come out? Because I got a fan-made
Song of the
Blu-ray
South.
Here. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the year.
You've got the DVD, 1946,
something like that. Oh, so we got a few years yet before.
Yeah, so we've got like, what is that, 15 years now on that one?
Yeah, but people are already got 35 millimeter scans of it. It's out there. You can get a really good copy of it.
Of Song and Stuff. Yeah, it's available. I just think it'd be more widely available. It'll be like very, very widely available, because there's the people that want to get it and you can get it, or versus the people that are going to see it, because more people are just going to play it. It'll just be out there for folks to use on all different.
See, and it's weird because the studios used to just sit there and take things like that and they would try to spin it in a way, but like, okay, we have Song of the South here. What do we do with this? Well, let's look at the positives here. It's got a black cast, famous songs. Walt was pretty progressive for the time, if you think about it. Nobody else is making these kind of movies. Not only that, nobody was spending this kind of money on it. And Brer Rabbit, this is one of the few places anymore you'll find anything Brer Rabbit, because they pretty much erased him from existence. And there's a lot of people that I know, like Lorena Creole and some others who have brought it up before, where like, yeah, that's the kind of stories that used to be passed down through their family, and they're being kind of lost. And it's like, yeah, to think that in 1947, as you just pointed out, for Walt Disney to do something like that is pretty goddamn progressive. So you think nowadays they would be like, oh, look, let's present it that way to the public. That's what they would have done 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
But now for some reason it's all like, oh, we got to hide this now. We got to change it. We got to edit it. We got to, it's just, I don't understand it.
Well, they're treating it like it's like the Uncle Ruckus of situations here. It's like, we gotta hide you from this. But it's like, no, if you actually look at this, if you actually play this film, you look at it through, this was actually really progressive, and it's celebration of the oral history, right? It's celebration of the culture. It's a positive, they net positive. It is not a negative film. It puts everybody in a positive light. The people that were complaining about it were just really dickering, right? They're finding little nitpicky shit and coming at it. TB says here, race swap Tarzan, do it. I dare you, Disney. I mean, they can make him like Hispanic or something, and they'd probably get away with it, or like Asian maybe, but yeah, they're clearly they're not going to go a certain
maybe
direction,
Indian or something like that, but
maybe India. There's jungles in India, right? You can get away with it there. That would make sense. Okay, here we go. Let me play this last one on Rumble Rants here. This is a clarification. So Shipwreck 13 says, no, in the comics, Professor X and Magneto had characteristic traits of King and X. Oh, Malcolm X. King wanted peace. X pre-pilgrimage by force. Oh, I see. So that's taking away from the comparison there. I didn't get that, but that's actually very true, right? That I didn't think about that. That's actually entirely true.
What's that?
That Professor X was a stand-in for Martin Luther King.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. That's always been, and that's why I never really had a problem when people have, because I know some people have had a knee-jerk reaction because of the modern day, but when they said something about having like Denzel Washington play Magneto and the guy who was in the Star Wars Gideon, that guy, I can't think of the actor's name. He was supposed to be up for Professor X as a possibility. I'm like, I can see that, because you got two things here. First of all, that iteration of those characters were based on their relationship. And we've gotten to a point now where we're that far in the future that the original X-Men movie from 99 was like in the near future, because you've already got Magneto and Professor X are that far removed from World War II, right? So it'd probably be easier to kind of move those characters up to the civil rights movement days and kind of draw a parallel there somewhere, maybe. And again, I know some people are like, no, I don't like that. But Dude, right now, if you put them at their age, Magneto would be like 106 or whatever. Like,
right. Well, it's the mutant age, man. Mutants don't age, man. Mutants don't.
There is that argument to be made, and they kind of
don't crack, baby.
Yeah, and I get it, and I get the reaction to it, but I guess that would be one of the least of all I would care about as much if they got it right.
Let me put it this way. One of them put it this way. After you tell me that, it would make more sense. However, it's the reasons why I know they're doing it. I know they're not doing it to honor the original.
That's a problem, unfortunately.
I know they're doing it for DEI, fucking inclusive bullshit. I know they're doing it for that reason. And the reason why you do things matter, like intention matters. I think honoring the original and honoring the story, that matters. And I think if they did that look, Tom, if we were in an era where people were honoring originals and honoring the author's intent, honoring Tolkien, honoring, Stan Lee, honoring these people that made these comics, I would be okay with it. I'm not okay because we know we're not in that era anymore. We're in the era of ham-fisted inserts. Squid says the X-Men was always a story about civil rights.
Yes.
Okay, no, I'm okay with that. Like, once again, I have a problem with it. But the X-Men, like, from Jump Street were already pretty damn diverse. Like, they were always pretty damn diverse from the start, right? I don't think there was much of an issue with that. Okay, so that's what I want to get for now. It's a lunchtime over here in Southeast Asia, so I'm going to go get myself some lunch. But Tom, thank you so much for hanging out with me late night, and I hope that I can join you guys on Midnight's Edge once again in the near future. I'm going to Japan this weekend, so I'll be over there. But when I come back next week, I will be glad to join you. Glad to join you.
Well, you're welcome anytime, brother.
Yeah. Anything you want to advertise or put out there? Any shows you're going to be on that you want to throw out there?
Sure. You can find me in Midnight's Edge After Dark, of course, all those kind of places.
Okay, cool. Guys, smash that like button. We are at almost 400 likes. So on the way up, please just smash the like button on the way up. If you like this, just drop one like on here. Let's get over 400 so people know that you guys like this. We had over 800 people watching at one point. Thank you so much, guys. Take care, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.